Welcome, everybody, to the show with our fancy new intro, which we can now have every week, thanks to Dan finally remembering to send it to me.
So,
I
remembered.
Eventually, yeah. So it's all good. It's all good now. So
welcome,
everybody. We're going to talk today about the Vietnam War in Wargaming.
And you know something, Artie? That's one of the wars that, I don't know if I'm the only one, but it actually scares the shit out of me, man.
Well, it's like, I mean, you're old enough like me, or you're old enough to remember when the subject of the Vietnam War was tread upon very carefully by everybody, right? Because it was recent. There were still a lot of people, there still are, but there were a lot of people who had come back from that, and they had, terrible experiences there, and terrible things were done there, and it was all on the evening news. First really time that had occurred.
But how come the Gulf War doesn't do the same to me, man? Because
it was really short. I think a better comparison is to the decade plus in occupation in Afghanistan. But even then, I mean, I don't know what the numbers are were in Afghanistan the whole time. But I mean, folks that come back from that certainly also have had pretty bad experiences. I mean, think about Gimpy, right? I don't know where he was, but something happened.
Yeah.
So people came back, sometimes physically damaged, sometimes emotionally damaged, and Vietnam it's the type of place in terms of climate, geography, and stuff like that very few Americans were just equipped to deal with.
I think it's the geography, the jungle, and all that. I mean, first of all, you don't only have to worry about your enemy; you got to worry about the tigers.
Well, yeah, I don't know how seriously to take that. I mean, there's no jungles in the United States other than Toledo, Ohio. So,
it's funny because every time I go mushroom hunting, I always say it to my wife. I always say, how lucky we are that we're not mushroom hunting in Pakistan or in Vietnam, where we're going to get.
I don't think you should go mushroom hunting in my backyard, man. We got all kind of poisons looking mushrooms back there. This is a good point too. There was remember in Vietnam, we had a draft. Not all those people wanted to go over there. We in the Gulf War and subsequent conflicts, we've had a all volunteer military, and that does make a big difference.
Yeah. Hey, Brian from Montreal, man, what's up?
Once again, welcome everybody.
Hey, by the way, Carl Kreider, I was waiting for you for a pipe today. What the hell happened?
Oh, geez.
Whatever.
Oh, geez. So as usual, our viewers are filling us in on the numbers here. Tim Greenshaw says more than 775 U.S. service members deployed to the country at least once. I think he means Afghanistan. And 2.7 million American men and women in Vietnam. So that is a lot more as well. So so in one of my military history classes, we covered the Vietnam War, not in tremendous depth, even though the professor was himself a Vietnam veteran, flew helicopters in Vietnam. And I've read one book on Vietnam, and I've played a little bit of operational Vietnam games. So I'm not particularly well educated on the subject. I think there would be, however, general agreement among wargamers of a certain age that for many, at least at its level, the Victory Games Vietnam, now available from GMT, is the definitive Vietnam game experience. Not only because of simulation value, but because it is long and grueling, just like the actual Vietnam War. And I've played Fire in the Lake, so there's that too.
Yeah, well, that doesn't give you the Vietnam experience.
No.
It's funny
of course it doesn't.
That. I would say Vietnam is more of a tactical type feeling than it is. Well, no, I know there's operational and all that, but it's more visceral, man. You know what I'm saying? It's more person to person.
Well, we have certainly seen more tactical games about Vietnam, at least that I'm aware of, than we have operational or strategic games. There are very few operational games. Year of the Rat, I think, is one, and there's Silver Bayonet from GMT, and there's the Hot Dry Season coming up from Legion War Games, which you should all order. and a couple other ones.
Front towards enemy, like
yeah, that's tactical. I mean, I misjudged Silver Bayonet as a tactical game too, just based on looking at the back of the box and seeing that it's companies. It's like, okay, you're thinking this is tactical, but it's really at that for that conflict, it really isn't. The Bernard Fall books are considered seminal works in the history of chronicling the Vietnam conflict. I do know that.
So how long were the Frenchies in Indochina?
A long time. Prior to World War II, right? So it was at the time French Indochina, and I don't know, and maybe I should have looked this up. What the establishment of French hegemony, or when the establishment of French hegemony in what was then called French Indochina occurred, but the Vietnam conflict runs under French administration, until the Americans start to show up, pretty much.
Well, 10X, I don't know if he says 150 years. Could it be that?
That might be right. Yeah, I just don't know the number. So that wouldn't surprise me. I mean, the British were in India that long, easily. So I am aware of no games on the topic of Japanese occupation of Vietnam, but I'm also maybe it doesn't make a good game topic. I don't know. Certainly you can get. So William Byrd quotes this as 46 to 55, which is the Indochina War versus French occupation. So, and then after that, Americans start to take over. So this is true too, actually. And Fields of Fires, I'd call it tactical, but I think that is a really weird appellation to put on Fields of Fire. It does cover Vietnam in both volumes. And is there a third volume coming out? I think there is. But I keep, because I haven't played either Fields of Fire. I have Fields of Fire, but I haven't played it, or Last 100 Yards, which I haven't played and don't have. And I keep getting and they're both active live series from GMT, so I keep getting them mixed up, which is not great because they're completely different games. So, Dan, turning the lights on. How about that? I think my lighting is pretty good right now, and I
want to be in the dark, for God's sakes, man.
I understand the you got the mushroom farm under the desk there, or what?
Yeah, I got this thing happening here. I don't want to go bad. Did you just get demonetized?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Not today, anyway. So, why did you get demonetized?
No, I just showed you some weed.
Oh, well, it's legal in Canada, so I think we're okay.
What was that door?
Just leave the weed off camera, okay?
All right.
I'm just saying, just in case, because they'll come send me to prison here in Ohio if I had weed.
And it's not tolerated in Ohio.
It is. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't do it, so I'm not really into that.
I don't do it myself.
So I don't really know what the landscape around quasi legalization looks like in Ohio. You can get a card to get it for medical purposes, but it is not recreationally legal in Ohio. However, at the old place, it seemingly, I'm probably exaggerating for dramatic effect, but every third car that drove past the house reeked of weed. So presumably they're getting it somewhere. I just don't know where.
Yeah. Maybe we should ask Carl Kreider.
So I don't know what they got going on in He is in California, right? I think he's in California, where the weather's nice and they got socialism. So Friar Jack, first of all, welcome to the stream. Became a French colony in 1877, which included Tonkin and Nam, Cochinchina, and Cambodia. Right, Laos was added in 1893. So minimally, you're talking about 50 to 80 years, right? So Lock and Load Publishing, welcome back. I understand from my compadres in Colorado that is a high weed availability. When we were out there, we bought no weed, but because I don't hang out with those people either. But I did notice we would be driving past. Hey, there's a weed store. Hey, there's another weed store. Hey, it's a third weed store.
And are these weed stores private or government owned?
I haven't the vaguest. I mean, they were all individual businesses. It wasn't like there was a big sign out front that said government weed. So I assume they were privately owned, but I would imagine there's some kind of licensing.
If you
involved.
come here, it says
there's channels on YouTube about weed. Go watch those. So it's even legal.
I don't
it's
do
even
weed
legal. You know what else is legal in New Jersey? Shitty airports. So
I studied in Jersey for 5 years, man.
I flew through Newark Airport twice, and it was not a great experience, to say the least. The fried chicken place, was that in Charlottesville? I think that was in Charlottesville. Actually, I had a layover in Charlottesville. So yeah, and indeed, John Clark, we did at least talk for 11 minutes about Vietnam before getting on to our regular topic of hookers and blow. So this was weird when I experienced this back many years ago driving through New Jersey. You're not allowed to pump your own gas.
What?
This was at the time when I drove through Oregon. The case in Oregon too. You got to get somebody to come out and pump the gas for you.
Yeah, that's for employment purposes.
So, well, I don't know. That's what people say. I don't know what the actual rationale is. So
gas. You want gas? I'll give you gas.
I had Taco Bell. I don't need your gas. So, so this is fair. I do not think that smells good, personally. So
no, actually, I enjoy the smell of weed.
Ugh, okay.
No,
I mean,
it's nice.
Maybe that high-powered Canadian stuff smells great. I don't know, but the cheap shit we have here in Ohio from the people driving past, that stuff smells terrible.
It's like a nice potpourri. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's
I don't smoke it. It doesn't work for me.
It's like somebody ran over a skunk, and the next car to drive by the roadkill picked it up, and put it in their car.
No, that's bad weed.
So, well, that might be, but I wouldn't know.
Because I swear to God, you smell some of the weed there. It's got lemony smells, apricot-y smells, and it's not even an aromatic. It's the plant.
Well, it is a plant. That's true.
So
there is actually a bit of scuttlebutt about this. So Downtown is a great shout out of a Vietnam game that we typically don't think of because it's Air War, right? It's
Who
Vietnam
did Downtown? Lee Birmingham Wood?
Over Hanoi. Yes, that's the Lee Birmingham Wood game. And from what I understand, from Scuttlebutt on Consum World, when he's done with whatever other thing he's working on, he wants to get back to revisit Downtown. I think, well, not on the calendar. I think there's a pretty good chance we will, in fact, see a reissue of Downtown at some point. Certainly, it goes for a bundle on the secondary market.
Oh, so you bet Birmingham Wood?
No.
Oh,
but I read what he said on Consum World.
Oh, excuse me.
So otherwise, I've read who's the guy now that wrote the Vietnam book that I read? Max Hastings, which is not a well-regarded book, to be honest. But I think I got it for $1.99 during one of those Kindle sales, and it was a decent enough place to start. At least it gives you kind of a lot. So we knew this was coming.
I love Petula Clark, man.
Yeah, she performed in Akron as recently as last year, actually.
Listen, she comes to she's totally bilingual. She speaks French.
Oh, I just knew she spoke English, and American English.
American English. Is that a thing?
Yeah, of course it is.
There's so many different dialects. You go to the South and they're drawling all the time.
Oh yeah, there's distinct dialects even in. So the better example is London, actually, where there's like 17 different dialects that are like distinct London dialects.
Right.
The Cockney accent, for example, should be familiar from pop culture, is the dialect of one specific area in London, unless somebody's faking it, but. Which is a thing that it happens and is looked down upon when it happens. So I didn't know there was an expansion in C3I number 18, and unfortunately, old issues of C3I go for a bundle on the secondary market as well.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, if it's out of print, especially if it's been out of print for a while, you tend to be looking at north of $80 for any given issue of C3I, assuming it's got all the stuff. So great place to go for those is Enterprise Games, though.
Hold on a second. Enterprise Games. Didn't the guy pass away?
No, that's noble. That was NWS.
Right.
Yeah, no, good. God forbid. Don's a friend of mine. He's a great guy. They run a great operation. Happy to see them. Happy to buy stuff from them every year at Origins. If not throughout the year as well.
What's the story with NWS?
The guy died, and that's it. If you had an order open with them from say 6 months prior, because that's how fast he shipped orders. Take it up with your credit card company. This is what I told people to do at the time. I didn't want to. I felt bad for being cold-blooded about it, but I mean, unless you just want to give up and say
business is business.
Whoever the probate court decides the money goes to gets the money. Take it up with your credit card company.
Yeah,
I got my money back. I had a hanging order with him.
Yeah.
I mean, despite that, the fact that he took forever to ship stuff most of the time. I did make a point to always have an open order with him. So once once I got the last order, I'd put in a new order and then very patiently wait 6 weeks, politely inquire as to what the status was. And then he'd get back to me a couple days later and say, "Oh yeah, we're working on it. I should be able to ship that out soon." And then another 3 weeks later, he might ship it. So
he was quite young, wasn't he?
He was not much older than me. So, these things, that kind of stuff happens too. I mean, I had a gaming buddy of mine that I used to game with in the 90s. One of my Rollmaster guys passed away at like age 28 of a heart attack. So, I mean, these things do happen.
Let's talk about happier things like the Vietnam War.
Yeah, that sounds fun. So I mean, there's a lot of Vietnam games that have come. I don't know about to say a lot, but I think there's been something of an increase in interest among designers of Vietnam games. We've got we've got a couple things in the pipeline. We've got a Hot Dry Season, like I mentioned, which I did video on. If you want to see how it plays, go watch the video. And we've got Dien Bien Phu, which is the French side of Vietnam, but it's still the Vietnam War, right? The French side. There's probably a nomenclature here that I'm not sufficiently up on, but it happens in the early 50s.
Who was the designer of that game?
That's a Kim Kanger game, I believe.
Yeah, Kim Kanger.
Yeah, and it's from Legion War Games, and it's pretty well regarded. There's an old game called Hue from I believe West End. It's got a prominent designer designed that game, and I'm not sure now whether it was John Edwards or John Prados or John Hill. So the game I'm thinking of is from Mayfair, actually, and it is a John Hill game. And I know nothing about it other than that I can picture the box in my head from seeing it at an Origins auction years ago. So Storm over Dien Bien Phu from
what about
MMP.
that? Yeah.
So that's one of those Area Impulse games, I'm pretty sure. I have not looked at this at all, by the way. But so there's the Area Impulse system, which has kind of a decent chunk of games in it now. This got started back in the days of Avalon Hill with games like Storm over Arnhem and Turning Point Stalingrad, and there were at least one or two other ones that Avalon Hill did, and various other publishers have picked up the system. The next thing to come out that I'm aware of is probably Storm over Jerusalem, which is coming from MMP at some point. Actually, that might be a this year thing. I'm not sure. Compass does have a couple. There's the Out of Starkweather Vietnam Rumor of War, which is presumably named after a book, but it's a really odd title to me. There's at least one other one. They did the Not Boots on the Ground, which is another Vietnam game. They did another one that passed through my Hearts and Minds. Vince Reed, thank you very much. Hearts and Minds is the one I'm thinking of. Original edition was done by somebody else, but it currently is held by Compass, and I believe Compass has it in stock. There are some folks that like that game, and of course, we've mentioned Fire in the East. Fire in the East.
Bobby!
Fire in the Lake. From GMT, Mark Herman, and Volko Runke, which I've played and which I do like quite a bit.
William, hello from Kitchener, Ontario. I love you, man.
Dan, you guys should get together and play something, right?
I swear to God.
Kitchener, Ontario can't be that far from.
Yeah, it's only going to be about 500 miles.
Yeah, that's nothing. I mean, who cares? That's what about it's like less than a 10-hour drive, right?
And you had mentioned Avalon Hill. Avalon Hill does not have a lot of Vietnam games.
No, Firepower, I think, covered Vietnam. And I mean, if we count victory games as Avalon Hill games, which maybe we do, I tend not to, but maybe we do. There's the victory games Vietnam.
Victory games had more.
I'm trying to think of one other than the.
What was it? The 67, 71. What was that game?
Vietnam, 1965 to 75. Yeah, that's the classic victory games Vietnam game. So this is true too. Actually, Avalon Hill did a Platoon movie tie-in.
Yes,
Year of the Rat we mentioned, which like was published when it was still happening, right? I mean, it was published before America. I'm not sure when it was published exactly, but the Vietnam War was not yet over when it was published. It's a pretty early SPI game. Let me put it that way.
It was still happening, and the game came out.
Yeah, I want to say the Year of the Rat was like 72 or 73. It was pretty early.
That's pretty weird, man.
So, Vietnam Solitaire from White Dog Games been mentioned a couple other times. Jim Ozarski, Grog of the Year, tuning in for Vietnam and not Napoleon. How about that? The GDW Tet Offensive game has been mentioned a couple of times as well. That's a Frank Chadwick game, and I tended to always like Frank's designs.
Oh, yeah, Phantom Leader, yeah.
We have not mentioned Phantom
Leader. No,
we
have not.
DVG, so I have no knowledge of that, frankly.
I don't know who I was talking to Kilroy, and we were talking about games, and DVG came up, and I think something came about that DVG is more of a gaming company than a simulation company.
Say that again.
DVG, and I'm just saying this, is more of a gaming company. It's more gamey than it is simulation.
Is that more true of DVG than it is of GMT?
No.
Looking at like current output for say the last couple. Of years.
Okay. Look, business is business, man.
Now they do a lot of solitaire games, which I think. I think I get what you're after. I'm not even saying you're wrong necessarily, but I think there's that a lot of recent releases from a lot of publishers have leaned more into the game side than the simulation side. And
they gotta make money, man.
Well, that's fine. I'm not making a value judgment about that. I think I don't particularly feel like calling out DVG for it particularly. No. I think the only company that's really not true of is probably MMP.
I'm not dissing them.
Revolution Games, everything they do, even if it's not some kind of massive monster game vanity project, is a pretty, direct hex and counter game. So Grunt, that's a good call. Very good call, actually. And Clash of Arms Speed of Heat, which is part of that, whatever their air system is called, that has had several games in it now as well. The Lost Valley, The Siege of Dien Bien Phu. This is a Jacques Ribier design from White Dog. This is something I haven't looked at all. It looks kind of interesting from just looking at the pictures of it. However,
what's Jim saying? He's talking in code.
I assume he's talking about some kind of fancy pants miniatures game. That's what I'm going to assume.
Come on, Jim, respect.
Oh, no, he's not. He's talking about the current version of Hearts and Minds
Hearts and Minds. Yeah, okay,
Compass,
gotcha.
because it comes with like a 1.5 inch D6s. It's weird. I open it up. I'm like, oh, what's this about? I don't know if that was like a decision or if those were just, these are the dice we have. Put these in that box.
Hey,
So,
you know what, Carl Kreider.
I watched some video about Hearts and Minds, and this has happened a few times, and because I was interested in it, and I think I may even have had the game by then. But then I realized it was not going to be the game for me, even much more so actually than say Fire in the Lake.
Hey, Carl Kreider, what's your favorite era? Napoleonics, Vietnam, World War II. I never asked you that.
I think we can speak for Jim Ozarski on this.
So why is he talking about Vietnam? Get out of here.
I'm just saying, because Jim is a wealth of knowledge, especially about early SPI titles. So I think we've been saying it correctly. I think I've been saying it correctly. I don't know about Dan. Remember, Dan speaks in a thick Canadian accent, so it's hard to understand sometimes.
He's German. It changes all the time.
Yeah, Sea Lords of the Mekong Delta, that passed through my hands. I think it was a buddy sale. While selling it, I was like, this actually looks kind of interesting. And it was one of the first magazines to go to in that sale. Sea Lords of the Mekong Delta. Not sure what the issue number is, but it is an S&T game. I mean, you can look any of these things up on BGG, so go do that. If you haven't heard, the BGG Marketplace's last news is it's going away completely. Nobody thinks that's a good idea, but that is where that's where they left it as far as I could tell.
When's the final date?
September 1st, I thought, or maybe August 31st. I thought this whole thing was just a fantastically dumb decision on their. Well, maybe it's not a dumb decision on their part. After all, Board Game Geek is a business that exists to make money, and maybe running the BGG Marketplace is not a good business decision for them. But I found it to be a valuable resource.
Look what Brant says.
What does Brant say?
He says that they put out another announcement that they're going to shift to classified ads instead.
Yeah, they've been batting around a number of other half-baked ideas that I think are not gonna be as useful to the community as the BGG Marketplace was. So we'll see what it looks like. We'll all get to take a look at it. I have the sense that scrambling is happening to come up with a solution that will replace it. So it may have been tax reporting rules, right? I have no idea. Oh, this is good. Well, would they though? I mean, maybe. Why would BGG be responsible for that? I mean, it's kind of a private deal between seller and buyer. Only they're getting their cut as well. So something about this rings a little funny, but that's not to say this is not correct. It's just that I have to see a more detailed exploration of that. This would be a good title for David, actually, but David likes to discover topics that nobody else has covered. Then again, Dien Bien Phu hasn't been covered all that much. Just a couple games on it, but not that many. So yeah, actually, I think Dien Bien Phu would be a very good topic for the Valiant Defense series. And maybe somebody else can design that game, right? Give David a break for a change.
Artie, beep, 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 beep. Breaking news here. I just got some news from Jess.
Oh,
right
great.
Now.
Great.
Okay, so next week it's happening. She's in.
Oh, good.
So she responds on code and giveaway. Okay.
Code and giveaway. Ooh, giveaway.
Yeah. So
ooh.
There's still a no code zone, they say. So it's not just us. It's a no code zone for at least another month. However, she says,
and Noble Knight does do that from time to time. I don't know why, but they do.
So she says, I have the okay to do a temporary discount code to be launched at the live gathering that is next week.
Next week on this show on Dan's channel.
for the combo of no enemies here in player's aid. And also blah, 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 blah. And
I guess I'm not coming then, huh?
No, you're involved in that.
You didn't mention me just now. I did not get
part of
mentioned.
the no enemies here thing. It just happens.
Uh-huh.
And they also have a code and okay to do a card giveaway. Huh?
Okay, that's great. That's
Arden,
great.
You know how
I feel a little left out here, Dan. Just like on the GMT link to our show with Mark Herman, where it's like
not left out.
Mark Herman interviewed by Dan Pancaldi.
No,
I'm like,
wasn't.
yeah.
Look, man, it's not.
What is that wearing? What am I supposed to wear? A fucking bag on my head here? What the hell? Come on, and I'm not blaming you for that, Dan.
Look, it's
only I'm blaming you.
Semantics.
Whatever was going on, I'm sure it's your fault.
No, it isn't. Fuck.
So I'm just saying.
Look, you had the intro. I wasn't involved for about a year.
Oh, that's why I didn't use it. I used the bland generic StreamYard. It
Come on, tell it to your wife.
So maybe you haven't even heard the weird music that Dan has. So, or maybe you have, but you haven't heard it on this show.
I'm hurt, Jesus. I'm hurt.
So, see, I have community support here from Carl Crader from the Wargame Bootcamp.
I didn't interview Mark Herman. He was on our show.
Yeah. Our show.
I have a headache.
Our show. Not your show. Not my show. Our show.
I have a headache.
I bet you do. You're gonna have a bigger headache in about 28 minutes. So
look, I'm not even gonna say I'm sorry because I didn't do anything.
No, this is not your fault. This is Noble Knight's fault and GMT's fault. So, I can't help it if I'm the underdog.
Okay. We'll ask her to change the code name. How's that?
There you go.
Eh?
That sounds great.
Everything you wanted to know about war games, but were afraid to ask. No one's gonna go for that code. It's too long. They're gonna be dead before.
That is true. That is true. That is true. So
I don't get a kickback.
Yeah, you guys have really not heard the weird stuff.
I don't get a kickback.
Not on this show. So I don't get a kickback either. I'm not asking for a kickback.
I'm just saying.
I'm just asking to be acknowledged.
I don't want to say I'm sorry, but I'm sorry.
I've been robbed here. What are you talking about?
Jesus, I'm sorry.
We're gonna have to have a hard conversation with them, aren't we?
I'm sorry. I can't believe it.
So anyway, no. Now, not to say, well, okay, so let me clarify this. There isn't one on pre-order. They do have a Vietnam game, Front Toward Enemy, but it's a tactical game. It's Joe Chacon design. It was reasonably well received. And I don't know of an SCS game because I am not connected to the SCS pipeline other than the stuff that shows up on pre-order or that say that, gets mentioned to me. So I don't have a lot of insight into what SCS stuff might be in the pipeline. And I don't know that I think SCS would be all that good for Vietnam. But could you make it work? Yeah, but I think you'd need a lot of special rules because it's a conflict that, frankly, a lot of our war game machinery is designed to handle World War II or musket and rifle type eras, and not necessarily the kind of unconventional conflict we saw in Vietnam. So, no trumpets, no drums. I have heard of it. I have never owned it. It also has a decent fan base, however. So that's about all I can tell you.
Yeah, but I played 2 war games this week.
Well, that's great. Which one?
Yeah, it is. I'm back in. My son-in-law is into it.
That's cool.
But we're going easy. We're going like really easy, okay? So we did Undaunted Normandy.
Cool.
Which look, he's getting into it and he wants more detail and more detail. So we went Down in Flames.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
supposed
he
to be
bought
fun.
into it. And I know, Artie, I know it's super easy, but then I showed him Time for Trumpets. Huh?
Yeah, that's a little less easy.
I know. And I said, look, man, later on when we grow up, we can play a game like this and we could set it up, taking 2 days to set it up, and we'll leave it on the floor for 2 years.
We just set up a bulge game, and it did take a little while to set up, so I can attest to that. Now, my question here is going to be: I'm going to look it up and tell you how to. I'm going to tell you as soon as I look this up how to learn Time for Trumpets. So the first thing you do is you go over to Compass Games' website and you order Bitter Woods. It is available from Compass Games still, and then you play that and learn that, and then move to Time for Trumpets.
Okay, and Bruno had said that basically they're in cahoots. Who's the Helger, Randy Heller?
Randy Heller is, I think, the developer of Time for Trumpets.
Yeah, right. So
but he's the designer of Bitter Woods,
yeah.
Which Bruno was involved in the. I'm not sure if development is the right word, but Bruno was definitely involved in the development of Bitter Woods. Bitter Woods is a very well regarded game, so it's probably worth learning on its own merits. I just haven't played it, so if you know there's a prerequisite to know Bitter Woods, then I bounce pretty hard off the rule book of Time for Trumpets.
Well, I mean, isn't Bruno Sinigalio the authority on Battle of the Bulge, man?
Inside the wargaming hobby, at least, he is the greatest living authority on the Battle of the Bulge. So, I think there'd be a lot of agreement with Stephen Reynolds' statement here that he doesn't think Vietnam fits well with Hex Encounter. Coin, that's why there's a coin Vietnam game, right? That's why there's a bunch of area type Vietnam games. That said, we do have, again, assuming you're talking about handling the whole, you're not even handling the whole conflict, but say the main American involvement part, so 65 to 75. Again, we go back to the Victory Games Vietnam game, but it does have a lot of machinery to deal with that conflict in a Hex Encounter format.
You see, Carl said he played No Trumpets, No Drums with Matt and Tim Porter. First of all, where do you get the time to play all that and do your other games and get a job and have a wife? What's the matter with you? What are you
you spend years in this hobby, and it doesn't.
Well,
I'm not going to play
smart?
My whole playlist for this year, right? So that's just the way it works.
Jesus.
So sometimes you got to say, you know what? I'll play this 3 or 4 years from now.
Yeah, it's not.
And sometimes you got to make a decision about, I'm never going to get to this. I'm just going to get rid of it.
But it's right? Not like you're an experienced war gamer and put out Time for Trumpets and you're playing it like this. There's still certain rules to learn. Certain days, certain that. Certain days, certain that.
Yeah, and it's a challenge. I think either way, it's a challengingly written rule book or challengingly constructed rule book. It's not necessarily the writing. Structurally, it's a very weird rule book. Good catch here. We hadn't mentioned this. Tactical Vietnam, a relatively well-trod space, is covered by Heroes of the Nam from Lock and Load Publishing, and that's the Lock and Load tactical system too, which I do like. Right, if you want kind of a decently detailed tactical system that covers World War II and some other stuff, but you don't want to deal with ASL for whatever reason.
No.
Lock and Load Tactical is one that I would look at.
Would you do Combat Commander first before Lock and Load?
No, because I don't like Combat Commander.
No, that's not what I'm asking.
If you're asking whether it's easier, no, I don't think so. Maybe it's probably a little lighter.
Lock and Load?
Not. It's not like there's not a huge gap in complexity between the two games.
You're talking first Lock and Load before Combat Commander.
I'm talking. I think Lock and Load Tactical is a little more complicated than Combat Commander.
It's funny, eh? I don't think so.
Like I said, I don't think there's a big gap there. I'm going by the more recent Lock and Load Tactical Rulebook with a big compendium that they put out. That's kind of what I'm using as a benchmark, rather than the booklets that may have appeared in the individual boxes back in the day.
Did you see the stuff they just put out? And I'm not trying to boost Lock and Load, but they put out a companion book where you don't have to buy the game. You just buy it and you play it on Vassal.
Huh. No, I didn't see that. That's neat. That's neat.
No,
there is a video game version of Lock and Load Tactical that you can buy on Steam, and it's pretty cheap. My understanding is you only get a few scenarios with it, but still, you know, nothing wrong with that.
No, this
and
is the whole game.
I assume it has an AI opponent that you could play, and probably has some kind of competitive thing where you could play it versus an opponent as well.
Every companion book, it's the whole game, and they have it on either tabletop or Vassal.
Okay.
Which is pretty cool. But me, I want to play the board game.
So there is Front Toward Enemy is not ASL. It is its own system. Okay. However, that said, there has been talk for a while on doing ASL Vietnam. And I feel like you could do it. I think it would, you could make this work. But it would require you to retool a lot of the mechanics of ASL, and I think would be a really, it would smell bloated. I mean, I'm happy to be proven wrong on this, but I would be afraid that such a thing would end up being real bloated. So Carl says that Lock and Load says the Combat Commander is easier. Yeah, okay. I mean, that makes sense to me. I've played both games. Old School Tactical is another good game. Not covering Vietnam, but another good solid entry in that space.
That's right.
If you can get your hands on it, because it seems to come back into print and then immediately vaporize into secondary market.
I'm talking about coming back into print. 3 Days at Gettysburg. What's it called? A Most Fearful
Sacrifice
is actually being reprinted, and I have unshrinked it,
which is so big that I had to put it in its own separate container to move it to the new house. It is that big. It is damnably awkward, and annoyingly, Mark, if you're watching this, and Herman too, on the top of the box, the narrow side of the box, there is no title that says The Most Fearful Sacrifice, and that's turn the box like this. No, other way, so you can see the top of the box. There you go. That side of the box should say A Most Fearful Sacrifice on it. I got it on the shelf. It's the only way it'll fit on these shelves, and it looks like a blank box.
Same with Old School.
Very disappointing. This is about the most serious complaint I have about it, by the way.
Same with Old School Tactical. Same with the expansions, Air Paratrooper. What is it called? The Airborne. That's a Mark Walker thing. We should give him a shot in the head.
I am reasonably, not having played every Vietnam game, it seems unlikely to me that this would be a thing that we would factor into a Vietnam game. Is that a standalone or an expansion?
This is an expansion.
Okay, so can you play it just with the stuff in that box, or do you have to have the core game to play it?
Well, I'm assuming you have to have the core game to play it. I've never played it.
Do you have the core game?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay, good. It's a solid looking game. Oh, very good. EYAWTKAW's Fall of South Vietnam. That would be interesting to see, because I'm using the term interesting. What does that say? Ghost Front what?
Belgium
1944. Okay.
There's your pet peeve, Artie.
Also, has BGG Search just gone completely in the toilet? This is an interesting looking game, actually. The Fall of South Vietnam from EYAWTKAW. So I didn't realize this, but apparently when Battle Line went away, Steve Peake and Craig Taylor from Battle Line went over and formed EYAWTKAW, and that might explain why EYAWTKAW did, in fact, have some very interesting games. This looks like one of their legendary album games, which was a truly bizarre format. And this was designed by Neil Zimmerer, and it is an area-based map, and looks like it covers 73 to 75. So as the Americans start to pull out. This is a good question. I don't know the answer to this, so hopefully somebody does. Is 65 Nom, that thing from Flying Pig, related to Old School Tactical? I'm not sure that it is. I did not have the impression that it was Old School Tactically related.
No, it's not.
And Brant's, there you go. And Brant says it's not, so I'll take Brant's word for it.
It's not. It's actually a smaller box, but they do have the look at that. They have that, the RD, so you know. And it's a heavy box, man. Jeez.
Well, all their stuff is pretty packed. I mean, Old School Tactical's packed. Most Rebel Sacrifice is packed. So,
yeah, since my son-in-law is getting into this, man, I'm going to be playing all these games.
So this is a great question by Christopher Prest. Are there those book games that you're so fond of, Dan? Are there any of those set in Vietnam?
As a matter of fact, yes. Something in the Jungle, Mike Lambo.
I might have known that Dan Rambo would be responsible.
I don't think he likes that, man.
Maybe not, but you get him on the show, he can yell at me. That's fine.
Oh, God. The guy's hard to get, man.
Well, he's very busy designing a new game a month, apparently. So,
he's like that girl in 7th grade with the big tits.
I don't know why that would come up, but
that's just something that came up.
Oh, so I think we're talking about here is the covers of the boxes. I definitely have the impression that those are actual people that they're based on.
Yes, one of them, the one for Japan, it's one of my favorite actors. What's his goddamn name?
Well, that's helpful. Is he a Japanese actor?
Yes.
Or a Japanese American actor?
He's Japanese, 100%.
Toshiro Mifune?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yes.
And he's the one Japanese actor, other than Ken Watanabe nowadays, the two Japanese actors people can typically name in the U.S. So.
Yeah, whatever.
So yeah, I'm glad to hear that you're playing stuff, though. That's good. I mean, there's no shame in starting with relatively easy, low footprint stuff, right?
Yes. I'm trying to suck in my brother-in-law, and the thing is that it's refreshing my brother-in-law, my son-in-law. It's refreshing my memory, getting me back into it. When you have an opponent who's passionate about playing a game, it's really beautiful, man. You know?
Oh yeah. Enthusiasm is always
absolutely
adds a lot to the experience, right?
And it's a once a week thing, so it's great. And he stays over. My wife accepts him. We cook him meat all the time,
and mushrooms. Like that, I'm sure.
I'm telling you.
So the covers of those are relatively stylized. They're this doesn't bother me. I think they're pretty good looking covers. I do feel like there's a taste thing with the saturation of the maps and counters that I think is a little more of a turnoff to me than anything on the outsides of the boxes. So Brant says they're friends and family of the company. So okay. Dan is always working hard to get me demonetized.
It's always my fault. It's always my fault. The code is my fault. Demonetization is my fault.
So it's all there. So.
And Scott, aren't you Canadian? Come on, work with me, for God's sakes.
We're all Canadian at heart.
You're damn right you are.
Right. So I started taking the French lessons on Duolingo, actually. It's amusing. I'll get bored with it after a week or two.
Hey, look, coming from an Englishman, French is wickedly difficult.
Oh, no kidding. Well, so is English, really, but there's
absolutely
there's
vice versa.
things in a lot of ways. Learning French has a lot of the same challenges of learning English. There's English spelling is bad. Okay, it's really convoluted. French spelling's pretty bad too. There's a lot of letters that don't sound like they're written or are silent or whatever. But French has noun cases and stuff like that we typically don't have to worry about.
That's right.
English. So with rare exceptions.
Look, I would say French is way more exact than English.
Okay.
You can get your point across in one sentence, where English to a foreigner is going to be a little mixed up. For example, hey, Artie, what's up? Hey, you coming up? Shut up!
That's true, but there's examples like that in all languages too, though.
French, no.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you get a lot of the lifting is done by the inflection, the noun cases and the verb tenses and stuff like that. That you have to have separate words for in English.
I'm talking about legal lawyer French. You know.
Well, that most lawyers, I don't know. I mean, unless you're operating in a territory that is governed by the Napoleonic Code still, I'm not sure that's important. But you are, and so is anybody watching from Louisiana. So
we are, yes,
or at least Louisiana common law is based on the Napoleonic Code. I mean, there's Acadian. Don't let Brant get on the Acadian thing again. Oh my goodness,
Brant, I'm impressed.
He's going to tell us now. He's going to tell us all about the Acadians.
Well, yeah, my wife is Acadian.
Yes, this is where I learned French too. This and Inspector Clouseau. So
yeah, that'll get you by.
You give me an actor doing a fake but consistent accent, and I watch enough of that actor.
Yeah.
Chances are pretty good I can end up mimicking it pretty well. So I mean, I got a lot of mileage out of Hogan's Heroes, for example. Yeah, I mean, sure, it's practice, right?
Frank, look, Artie.
I took a year and a half of Latin. I don't know how to ask where the bathroom is. So
coming from a non-Latin language like English, French is incredibly difficult, and vice versa.
Oh, sure. Yeah, but they start people in France early learning English for the most part, which we don't do that. We don't have non-English language instruction until high school, generally speaking, here, and that's a problem.
Trevor, yes, it's male. Unfortunately, it's ordinateur. A computer is male in French.
Yeah. So there's it's not what it's called, but English generally, for the most part, has natural gender, which is, if it's a male person, we use male things, and if it's a female person, we use female things. And French, and if it's an object, we call it a neuter thing and call it an it. Whereas in French, objects, does French have a neuter?
No.
Yeah, see, it's all male or female.
Yes,
so that's
like
super
Italian
weird.
and Spanish.
Yeah, and I don't know, that got dropped, right? That Latin has a neuter. So why did the French decide we don't like the neuter anymore?
I don't know. Ask Liz Davidson.
Liz is the Latin person, yes.
Yeah.
But I don't know if she's the French person too. She might be. I don't know.
Charles Cabell. That's one of the first guys I started watching. Charles, why are you coming at 8 minutes before I have to throw you out?
Welcome, Charles, to the stream.
Charles
Cabell, so this is a different situation. So Brant's high school experience was probably a little different than mine. I took French in high school. When I first got to college, I took Spanish. Later on, I took German. And then when I actually had to have a language, 4 classes in a language, which is what it was at the time, I took Latin. So I can, I'm semi-illiterate in at least 3 languages, possibly 4. is what that means. So yeah, so I mean, if you think French is hard, yeah, there's this, I don't know if it's the State Department, but some U.S. government agency has like a rating system for how difficult languages are to learn for English speakers, and like level 1 difficulty, the lowest difficulty are things like Swedish, right, which is considered very easy, or Dutch, which is very close to English. It's kind of a cross between English and German that took all the hard parts out of German, other than inserting random guttural consonants. So Russian's pretty difficult. Heroes of North Africa.
That's Charles Cabell.
Oh, it is?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I thought it was David Heath.
No, it's Charles Cabell.
Okay. We have indeed mentioned Hearts and Minds a couple of times. So, Dan doesn't tell you this, but those shelves are actually 9 feet tall.
Look, I had my stick to help me with. It's a scratchy
dear,
stick.
we've got the spammers again.
All kinds.
We've got the Russian porn bots. We have angered President Putin again. Why does this keep happening? Why, Putin? Why?
Yeah, Putin is he's no gender.
Sorry, I gotta get rid of these clowns.
There's clowns?
There's Did you see the clowns in the chat?
No.
There's clowns in the chat. Unless no, scroll up. There's clowns in the chat.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Do you get this on your channel?
Man, no.
I don't know that you get this on your channel. You have not sufficiently angered President Putin.
It's because you surf YouPorn.
That I'm pretty sure it's Putin. So.
Oh, man. I don't know. So if we click on that, what's going to happen?
I'd advise against it. You'll probably get some kind of virtual VD.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I'm just saying. Thank you, Charles. I appreciate that. So I was doing the Russian thing on Duolingo too for a while, and I got quite a bit farther with it than I have in the French. But it's tough, and the Russian Duolingo program's not that great either. I got by far farther in German than I did it with any of the other modern languages on there. I don't think they have Latin.
I did the Japanese one, and I
that's
don't know. I just got
too.
tired of it. What am I going to practice with, a robot?
Well, if you're going to practice with a robot, it's probably going to be a Japanese robot, right?
I hope she's.
If you're lucky, it'll be a giant Japanese robot, and then you'll be in a kaiju movie. So,
Gajira.
So, yeah, they rolled off because I and Charles booted them. So Purple Haze. Yeah, I don't know anything about this either. Is that out? I thought when I was looking at that, it was not yet out. Immersive Vietnam War story creation game from Phalanx by designer Bernard Zbrowski or something like that. So, Mr. Zbrowski, I apologize if I am mispronouncing your name. This looks like it might be interesting. There's some kind of expansion for it too, apparently. So somebody likes it.
Michael DePaul is saying something about a machine is not for finger poking and mitt grabbing. So relax and wasch dem blightless. That's what he said in German.
Okay. I'd rather not do this, to be honest. And this is despite the fact that if you look at the metrics, only a third of the people that watch my videos are actual subscribers. And that might be just because most people don't have a YouTube account, or at least know that they have a YouTube account, even though if they are using an Android phone, they have a YouTube account.
Well, it says you're popular, Artie.
Well, I agree. I am very popular, except with Noble Knight and GMT. Just saying.
I have Look, Artie.
Why did you do that to me, Dan? Why, Dan? Why?
I'm a victim of circumstance, man.
I'm angered. I'm engorged with rage, even as we speak now. Carl mentions that Mo did some videos on Purple Haze. That came out last year. Is that right? No, it's still not out. It says
That's
20.
an old
Well,
game.
if BGG is to be trusted, it says 2023. So that sounds like it's something that got kickstarted, and maybe some preliminary materials have gone out.
No, Brian, I didn't get a code yet, but come next week, there will be a Noble Knight code for 1 week, and I'm sure the name is going to change, and there's going to be a giveaway, and it's party time.
Party time. So know what is popular with them. I mean, I've had I don't know that it's the shipping people. It's their sort of order management system that I really have the problem with. So I'm not going to blame the guys shipping at MMP for the difficulties I and some others have had. So, and then if you had ordered, if you had an old system order of 2 games, I think Victory Awaits and the reprint of the Devil's Cauldron, you just had to reorder it on the new website. So okay, so apparently Purple Haze not out yet. Brad is got his finger on the pulse of the Wargaming news here. Phalanx announced they're doing rewrites to some of the storylines. So okay. So that makes it sound kind of like a Time Stories type of narrative game, which is interesting when people do that in a board game format. I've seen that before, sometimes effectively.
Brent, are you in touch with Yarrow? Andrew Skevich from Phalanx? Is that why you know that?
Brant knows he knows literally everything and everybody. That's the thing. So yes and yes.
Really?
I'm sure that's true. So anyway, folks, we are out of time. I'd like to thank you all for joining us tonight. I'd like to thank you for stopping by and having this discussion with us. We did a fair to middling job on staying on topic. I also like to thank my esteemed co-host, Dancing Dan the Dancing Man, for forgetting to mention me and all the correspondence with all these important people. Yeah, sniff that weed there. He's going to get us demonetized. The weed sniffing gets us demonetized.
Jesus Christ.
All right, folks. We'll see you all next week on Dan's channel. Everybody have a great night.
It's a party.